Noon, everyone in Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. My name is Leland Lazarus. I'm from the U.S. Embassy, and welcome to part one of our three-part series on professional development. I also want to thank our co-sponsors, the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors. When you are tuning in on Facebook, please comment right below on where you're tuning in from throughout the Eastern Caribbean. We would love to hear from you. And today we're going to be focusing on resume writing, succinct and successful. And we've got two amazing experts to share incredible information with you today. We've got Jamila Hollingsworth, who is the owner of the HR Boss, which is a Caribbean millennial career consultancy with readership in over 27 countries. In her own words, she is an internationally trained recruiter, a regional career millennial influencer, a Barbadian-born career coach, and an expert in kicking butt. She is a Harvard-trained leadership communicator, and she actually recently traveled to 3 Caribbean territories in 2017 to deliver career seminars and empower Caribbean millennials to take charge of their careers. I also want to note that Jamila is also an alumna of one of our U.S. exchange programs, which is the International Visitor Leadership Program, the IVLP. And joining Ms. Hollingsworth this afternoon is Mr. Dwayne Hendrickson from St. Kitts and Nevis. Dwayne is currently a senior tax officer in the Objections, Rulings, and Interpretations Unit at the Inland Revenue Department in St. Kitts and Nevis. And he is also the St. Kitts and Nevis CARICOM Youth Ambassador. Dwayne holds a Bachelor in Business Administration and Accounting from the University of the Virgin Islands. And during his tenure at UVI, he completed the Washington Center internship in Washington, D.C., where he interned with Citigroup as an associate in the International Government Affairs Unit. And during COVID-19, he's actually launched a virtual Curfew Crush workout program where he encourages persons to use this opportunity to focus on their health, jumpstart diet plans, and work on high intense interval training workouts. So in addition to giving us some resume writing, you should also give us your workout plan, dude. And Dwayne, it's also your birthday. So happy birthday to you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this on your birthday. And also this week is St. Kitts and Nevis's birthday. It's their Independence Day on September 19th. So congratulations to everyone who's tuning in from St. Kitts and Nevis, supporting your brother, Dwayne Hendrickson. Happy Independence Day to you guys this week. And so without further ado, I give the floor to Jamila and Dwayne.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So for the next hour, Dwayne and I will be talking to you guys about resume writing. And we have some technical assistants in the background, so we're going to answer the next slide. So here's an overview of what we'll be tackling when it comes to resumes and CVs in Caribbean. We're going to address what is a resume and its purpose, the difference between a resume and a curriculum vitae, types of professional resumes, steps to create a one-page resume, and ways to make your resume really stand out. Now, what Leland didn't mention is I am actually an HR manager, and I manage talent in 7 different countries. So not just in the Caribbean, but in Europe, USA, and Canada. So it's pretty different depending on the territory that you're applying to. And me and Dwayne will be sure to tackle and get down into the nitty-gritty. So without further ado, let's go. So what is a resume and what is the purpose? Most people actually believe that a resume and a CV are the same, are one and the same, but that's absolutely not true. So what does a resume actually contain? So we've summarized it for you with the help of our friends at balancecareers.com. Balancecareers.com is an excellent resource for all of the job seekers in the Caribbean because the information is relevant to our job seeking experience here. A resume ideally should carry your education. Your education is absolutely necessary as we need to know if you are qualified to do the job that you're applying to do. So anything from your CARICOM, from your CXCs, which are your Caribbean Secondary Examination Certificates, anything from your CAPE examination results, any associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, diplomas, any certificates that you've attained, postgraduate certificates as well. Those things will come under the education section. Work history, why is this important? Work history is important because it allows us to know what is your breadth of experience based on the industry you're currently working, what country or countries you've worked in before, because that experience could be relevant in terms of adding value to my organization. So you really want to put down your breadth of work history, not trying to leave out. There are some candidates that actually leave out work history based on what they think the employer wants to see. But my recommendation is to put the work history in chronological order. Number 3, credentials. Your credentials are absolutely important, and we'll come to that later in the presentation. Accomplishments. Now, Dwayne has screenshots of his actual accomplishments coming up later in the presentation, which we will go through. But there are certain accomplishments which you absolutely want to highlight for recruiters to see. Accomplishments such as Dwayne being a CARICOM youth ambassador. Everybody can be a CARICOM youth ambassador, and that is an amazing accomplishment which must be highlighted, and it stands out for us as recruiters that Dwayne is a selected leader who does purposeful work even on his birthday throughout the Caribbean. So the other types of accomplishments that we look for, of course, Leland would have mentioned earlier, the International Visitor Leadership Program. This is a premier program of the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. Department of State, and it's an amazing 3-week program that really pushes you to your professional limits. So for an employer to see that you are a CARICOM Youth Ambassador or you are alumni of one of these programs, it really highlights for us that 1, you are recognized by international bodies or Caribbean bodies, and you have been formally trained in how to be a top-notch, amazing professional. Basically, you are a rock star. That's what we think as recruiters. That's 5, skills. Skills are important. It is what separates you from the pack. In the Caribbean, most territories have free education. Trinidad has GATE, Barbados has just reintroduced free education. So we're kind of on par in terms of qualifications in the Caribbean. So what sets you apart really is your skills. Your skills are your unique selling proposition to the recruiter or to the employer. We will discuss later what skills really recruiters are looking for now. Now, from my personal experience doing recruitment locally here in Barbados, I was hiring for a job opportunity for our office in Germany, and I could not find a fluent French speaker in Barbados. So that is a skill set that I've noticed is lacking in the Caribbean, is that we don't have a lot of people who speak languages fluently in the Caribbean, and that's a skill set that we need to develop. So we're going to talk about skills later as we go on in the presentation. So just to recap, your resume should have or provide us with your education, your work history, your credentials, your accomplishments, and your skills. Now, here are some optional sections that we would absolutely encourage along with our friends at balancecareers.com. Your objective and your professional profile. Now, many people call a professional profile a personal summary or a professional summary, which normally goes at the top of your resume, and it normally outlines how many years experience you have. It normally outlines your competencies, your core competencies for the role. That snapshot is very helpful to us. We get hundreds of resumes on a daily basis. So outlining in one paragraph your professional profile and your professional summary actually helps recruiters and employers with the shortlisting process instead of having to dig down and review the resume to see if you're a good fit. So I would absolutely recommend having a professional profile at the top of your resume or a personal statement. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I've listed the source here for this, which is balancecareers.com/CVs and resumes. So Balance Careers, our friends, they're saying the difference between a resume and a CV is that a CV provides a summary of your experience and skills. Now, a CV is a much longer document than a resume. A resume tends to be 1 to 2 pages. However, a CV is a much lengthier document. Why? CV by definition speaks to course of life. So your entire, your full accomplishments, full work history, full skill set in papers that you've written, work you would have done, or projects that you were on that you're proud of. Those things go on your CV. So it's a much more extensive document. Some CVs can range from 2 pages. I've seen some as long as 7 to 8 pages, depending on the level of the candidate. There are some CEOs that may have 7-page resumes, right? CVs include extensive information on your academic background, like I mentioned, your teaching experience, thesis that you may have written, papers, any published work, books that you may have written. So your CV is a wider, more detailed documentation of the work that you've done over your course of life. Next slide. So here are the key differences, and this snapshot also could be found on balancecareers.com. The differences, as we highlighted earlier, a resume is 1 page. 1 page, short, to the point, and a snapshot. Approximately, it takes a recruiter or an employer approximately 10 seconds to scan a resume. Is that cool? Maybe not, but because of volume, we tend to scan the resume to see if it aligns with what we're looking for on the job advertisement that we sent out. So what you really want to make sure is that your resume is solid in terms of content. The key areas that we're looking out for, make sure those jump out to us too. You want to make sure the layout is very attractive, because resumes that aren't formatted properly or have grammatical errors are a turnoff for employers or recruiters. So you want to make sure you are careful with the layout of the document. So highlight your professional and personal accomplishments. We kind of talked about that earlier. 3, tailor specific to the job listing. So like I was saying before, we zero in on your resume and how does it align to the job ad that we place in the paper or on the internet. If you are not a fit, we will just move to the next candidate. So you don't want, a resume is not a static document. It can't be used for every single job that you're applying to. Every job you're applying to, you have to come with a different approach. Every company is different. Every company has a different sense of a different company culture, a different style. So you want to tailor your resume based on the company that you're applying to. There are companies that are very traditional that will prefer black and white resumes, very standard. And there are companies that are more modern that would prefer a reel of color and more creativity in how you present your information. So do your research on the company you're applying to, do your research on the job that you're applying to, and probably previous post holder, and see how you could tailor your resume to suit. Number 4, most teachers are applying to, so this is a snapshot from the USA. So they said most teachers are applying for K-12 teaching positions in the USA. So it seeks to give you an example of why a resume is needed. So most jobs in the USA will require a resume. And we find this, most jobs ask for a resume more than a CV, but I find in the Caribbean it's the reverse. Most jobs in the Caribbean require a CV rather than a resume. Some people in the Caribbean actually interchange the 2 terms because people aren't aware of the difference. So as we look at the differences in what a CV is, as we stated earlier, it's a longer document, it's more extensive, and it's a broader view on your whole body of work and your work experience. Next slide. All right, so here is a visual snapshot of what a resume looks like. It's 1 page, very succinctly laid out and easy to read. So the key areas or the key topics jump out at you. You have education, experience, you have skills, languages, whatever. It jumps out at you immediately, so you don't have to like search to see where education is, where experience is, and where skills are. The CV is a more lengthy document and it takes a while to review, so making it as attractive as possible is best for the recruiter. Next slide. Okay, Dwayne, you want to jump in here?
So while resumes in the United States are used primarily when applying for academic, education, scientific, medical, or research positions, or when we're applying for fellowships and grant, candidates for international job may be required to submit CVs for almost any type of job to which they apply. So this is what Jamila was just alluding to, whereby in the Caribbean, while we may use the terms interchangeably, we accept CVs because it's lengthier, whereas in the United States, a recruiter only has 10 seconds to read your resume. So that is why it is important to condense your resume into one page, and that what we will be showing you today. Next slide.
Okay, so let's talk about discrimination laws. Discrimination laws in every jurisdiction differ. So we're going to talk about US discrimination laws first, and then we're going to talk about the Caribbean. I work in Barbados. I'm based in Barbados right now, and actually in July, we actually passed the Employment Discrimination Act, which speaks to discrimination based on age, based on your address, based on your sexuality, based on disabilities. But the US is more advanced. They had discrimination laws for employment long before the Caribbean had. So the primary difference between a US resume and an international CV is that employers in other countries are unfettered by the US discrimination laws. But I think the US kind of sets the trend for the rest of the Caribbean. So we're now kind of creating and implementing our own discrimination laws now. But these details are, so some details that are excluded from resumes are your birth date, your nationality, your marital status, and a number of children you have. Now, I've recognized over my recruitment career over the last 10 years that some employers in the Caribbean actually explicitly ask you your number of dependents, your marital status, and some of them may go as far as to ask you about your religion. But no, we have a law in place. The act was only passed last month, which is the Employment Discrimination Act, that kind of guards candidates or employees from being discriminated against based on their birth, date of birth, nationality, marital status, their dependents, and of course their religion or any disability that they have. So in terms of the discrimination laws that protect you, the US has been very advanced in terms of safeguarding candidates and employees, but the Caribbean is now kind of catching up in terms of discrimination laws. You want to jump in here, Dwayne?
Yes.
Okay.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yes, so I'm going to walk through developing your one-page resume. Again, from my personal experience, most recruiters, especially Fortune 500 companies, a recruiter only has 10 seconds to scan through your resume. So we're going to take you how to make your resume jump out at recruiters. So this is a step-by-step guide for developing your resume. So first, of course, as your header, you want to start off with your contact information. Again, because of the discriminatory laws, you cannot include things like your date of birth, they're not supposed to ask you about your date of birth, your religion, etc., etc. But you want to include your name and any other designation you have behind your name, be it a BA, a BSc, a ACCA, etc., etc. You want to include your professional certifications on your name, and your name has to stand out. So if you could bold it and increase the font by just two sizes up, then that's better. With your name, please do not include like your street names. Like my friends call me Antonio, but I can't put Antonio on my professional contact information. No pet names and no names you're also known as well. For your address, you would like to put your address, one that you could be reached via mailing and your permanent address, your contact information, your up-to-date telephone number, and a professional email address. And for any school leavers who are joining us this afternoon, I encourage you, if you do not have a professional email addresses yet, you could include your name, anything that is not lewd or anything, you could use that as your professional email address. And of course, I cannot stress enough that as young budding entrepreneurs, employees, etc., your web address, and this web address could be in the form of LinkedIn, preferably, or you can cite your Twitter handle, your Instagram handle, based on what the job you are applying for. Next slide.
And before you go on, Dwayne, if you go back to the last slide, what you want to do is make yourself as easily accessible to employers or the recruiters. So if you provide us with a contact number, make sure you're easily accessible by that contact number. If you provide us with an email address, make sure you're checking your emails frequently. If it is that you provide your home number, you want to make sure that you inform the persons that are in your communal household that you are applying for jobs, so that they are aware to take any message for you or take any information in a detailed fashion so you can get back to us.
Next, you want to move on to the education section. Now, this is where you will list your university, be it your tertiary education, your secondary school. So you would like to give that information. I normally tell people that it's good to include the year that you graduated, so May 2018, where it's located, and your degree that you received, be it an associate, a bachelor's, etc., etc., etc. So your graduation date, the location, the degree type, the major, and any academic honors that you may have. Now, for school leavers at the university level, when you're now about to enter the job market, listing your courses that's for a particular job. That, let's say if you're going into the mechanical industry and you did a course that is relevant to that field, by listing this course, it will give the employer a better chance or a better idea of the knowledge and expertise that you may possess. Remember to only list classes relevant to the job you're applying for. So you don't want to list 3 years worth of coursework. You just want to list any that is relevant to that particular field that you're going into. Next slide. Here's where you want to put any skills and software proficiencies that you may have. It is here that you can showcase your technical skills that will be relevant to the field in which you are going to enter. Stick to only hard skills. Most people think that the soft skills, such as being a good communicator and active listener, that can be done when you're doing the interview. The recruiter will know if you're an active listener or you're a good communicator through the interview. So listing it here is not so much important. So these include like stuff like computer gramming. If you have foreign language, you want to include this in that section as well. This section is extremely important because it is here that you not only the recruiter, but an employer system can pick out skills relevant to the job quickly. It is suggested that you incorporate how you can use these skills in the work experience section of the resume. So with a resume, everything flows. Next slide. So we're going to move on to a very, 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 very important section, which is the work and leadership experience. You want to include the organization, dates, location. You want to give your description, and you want to give a task. When describing the task of an opportunity that you had, you want to say what the task was, what action you use, and what were the results. So list jobs and major achievements that are relevant to your job goal in the work experience section of your resume. Highlighting leadership experience will allow you to showcase to the prospective employer not only that people trust you to lead a group, but also gives you a chance to explain how you can take the initiative in a team environment as well. With that said, it is important that you include any major accomplishments in this section. Try to stick to a maximum of 4 bullet points for any relevant work or leadership experience. Many employers want to see your work history. So before you have unrelated jobs where you have performed well, you may just want to include a brief description. For these types of jobs, it is important best to mention your job title, place of employment, dates, month or year of the employment. So if you look at a snippet of my resume here, you will see I use action words. For example, pioneered and generated. These show that you can take initiative and you can take ownership of something. So here I said I pioneered and generated an internal article on the benefits of the Trans-Pacific Partnership that is used as a source document for reference for decision-making process, decision-making and advocacy points. So here, because I use verbs that signal you took authority, you took the initiative, it jumps out at recruiters. So you could see what was the task, what action did I use, and what were the results from that action. And also, if you're a school leaver and you don't have work experience or significant work experience, and you have leadership experience, students can substitute the professional experience section for any major accomplishments, or they can include major projects related to the field. Including one of these categories will help you expand on the highlights of your educational experience. And then to wrap up the section 5, because remember, we are creating a one-page resume. You want to include awards and honors. These includes any recognitions and dates that you might have received. So for me, it would be being a CARICOM Youth Ambassador for St. Kitts and Nevis, and I will list the dates and any other recognitions that I have received in the past, be it I was on the honor roll, and you want to include things like clubs and organizations. And if you have a position, an executive position, you want to include that as well, because again, you want to show to the recruiters that you own some form of leadership experience. And any volunteer work and community service, most organizations in the Caribbean and in the US, they're mainly driven by corporate social responsibility. So if you have on your resume that you enjoy volunteering and giving your time through community service, that too helps you stand out via your resume. We're going to move on to making your resume stand out. Jamila?
Okay, so how do we stand out? We are living in a time where, specifically in Barbados, we are now at 50% in terms of unemployment rate. I was having a conversation with a colleague in Trinidad yesterday, and he was talking about, the airport not opening back, oil being down, the market, unemployment rising. So the job market now is increasingly competitive, and your resume really is the introduction between you and the recruiter and you and the employer. So now more than ever, it is important to have a solid resume to ensure that in a market where there are limited opportunities, not just in Caribbean, but in the world, that you make sure you get this right so that you can stand out for those very limited opportunities. So here are 4 bullet points that Dwayne and I will go through to make sure that you get ahead of the competition. Number 1, appearance is everything. We are human beings as recruiters and HR managers, and we like to read documents that are easy on the eyes. The easier and more pleasant a document is, and if the content is strategically laid out, we can get the information we want in a short possible time frame, and that helps us to move the recruitment process along. So 1, appearance is everything. If you can have it, we have an example here of how a one-page resume should look, the standard. And it, as you can see, it has the contact information, it has the education, the highlights, it has the work experience highlighted, and you will notice you would not get all of your work experience on the resume. So make sure you put your experience in chronological order, or depending on the job you're applying to, you want to put the experience that is most related to the job you're applying to. Number 2, you want to make sure you have easy to read content. Content is king. It's okay to have a fancy and pretty looking resume, but when we pick it up and we start to read and we notice that the information that we're looking for isn't in alignment with the job advertisement or the job description, then you're still at sea. So you want to make sure that the content is what we're looking for. Dwayne went through the accomplishments, the task or the projects that you would have had a role in or taken the lead on. We want to know about those things. Number 3, make sure full information is provided. So normally when employers or recruiters advertise for jobs, there normally is a list of what is needed. They normally would say must have a bachelor's degree, 3 years working experience, must be a team player, must be good at Microsoft Office. Full information means not just listing your contact information, but make sure all of those boxes are checked so that we could see them. So if the ad specifically asks for these 5 competencies, make sure those competencies are highlighted on your resume so we don't miss them. Number 4, alignment of your skills with the job being advertised. That's pretty much what you just said just now, but you want to make sure that the CV or the resume that you're presenting to the employer aligns with what's being asked for. So every resume is different based on the job you're applying for and the company you're applying to. So we're going to give you an opportunity to screenshot the slide, and then we're going to go forward into proofreading and editing. Awesome. So I'm sure everybody's gotten it, and the replay will be up on the Facebook page, I am sure. So next slide.
So it is important to always ask yourself. I would ask myself, Dwayne, did you proofread, edit, and tailor my resume to the job that I'm going after? So then first impression counts. So basic spelling errors. You don't want to have a spelling error in your own name. For example, when a recruiter takes up my resume, they will say, oh, your name does not have in a Y. So had my name had in a Y, that, they will be impressed that, hey, this is a Dwayne without a Y. So first impression counts. So basic spelling errors, grammatical errors, and other errors, it decreases your employability for that job. Keeping your resume updated places you at an advantage. So with every accomplishment, or you change job, and you realize you're accomplishing more tasks and et cetera, you want to include that, keeping it up to date. And when prompted by a recruiter, you can immediately email your resume for advanced consideration for any job that you are applying to. So it is important to have your resume backed up on your Google Drive, a copy in your email. You might have it in your iCloud. Just make sure that it's readily available for when you are prompted. When a recruiter may not have time to talk to you, but they will say, oh, can you email me the resume? So as soon as you leave the elevator, or you come off the stairs, whatever, you can readily send that updated resume to that recruiter. And a QR code helps. We're in the era of technology, and iPhones and Samsungs know that your camera app, your camera is also a QR code scanner as well. So having your resume, a photo of your resume in a QR code style, your recruiter can just open their camera app, open it, scan the QR code, and it takes you right to that resume. So investing in that, it helps you and puts you in a position to be considered in advance.
Absolutely. One thing to add, Dwayne, I find a lot of candidates actually miss opportunities because they think their resume is a static document. So updating constantly whenever there's a change is so important, because a lot of people miss on opportunities because they're like now scrambling to update their document. They can't find their CV because they haven't done it in so long.
Correct. And it's important to examine the field you're applying for and ensure that your resume experience section shows that you meet that field's prerequisites. So as Jamelia alluded to earlier, and which I also said earlier, if I'm applying to a mechanical engineering job or in that industry, and all I can show that I have administrative functions, then why am I applying to that field? So you may want to ask the recruiter, hey, do you have anything in admin and finance? I can be a great asset. It's about you selling yourself, and that's what makes you stand out, and that it could also stand out through your resume.
All right, so here is the SparkNotes version. These are our top 3 resume tips me and Dwayne combined. Tailor to the job. Absolutely, you want to customize your resume to every single job that you're applying to, or every single company. Every company has a different culture, a different style of doing things. Number 2, proofread. And number 3, make sure you update regularly. Even if you aren't job hunting, who knows, an opportunity for a board position or some kind of special appointment can come up where they actually need your resume. So make sure you tailor to the job, proofread, and update your resume regularly. So that's the end of our presentation. And now we're going to take some time to address some questions. I'm sure Leland has some questions for us. So we're going to jump right into it.
Yes, Jamila, Dwayne, thank you so much. This was extremely helpful. I'm sure that the many people who have been listening, has been a very enriching experience. We do have some questions, and I just want to say, if anybody has any questions for Jamila and Dwayne, please feel free to ask it right here on Facebook Live, and we will answer those questions in real time. So the first question from Kevin Gibson is, are there positions available for dual citizens? And I think a follow-up question for that is, in your resume, should you highlight the fact that you're a dual citizen?
Thanks for that question, Leland. I'll take it, and I guess Dwayne could help me out. It depends on where you're applying to. If you are applying to the US, for example, there are special work permits that are needed, or you need to be a US resident. So it depends on the territory you're applying to. For example, in Barbados, the same applies. But if you are a CARICOM national, there is a CARICOM skill certificate that you can apply for and be able to work in any Caribbean island. So my follow-up question for Kevin will be, where are you applying to? And if it is that you're applying to one of these territories, yes, it may be suggested that you indicate that you have permission, or you're permitted to work in that territory. That might be a more appropriate response.
And then to piggyback off of what Jamila was saying, based on my personal experience, I studied in the United States. So of course, I was looking for a job during the summer, internships and what's forth. And one of the questions that I often received was if I hold dual citizenship. And of course, that is a question that you do not, absolutely do not want to lie about. So I always will say no. However, I can work through, once Homeland Security clears you, which is a simple process as well, you can work in the United States. And for example, there's the OPT, if you're a student currently, and it's all based on where he's studying also. There's the OPT and there's the CPT, and those you can apply through your Career and Counseling Services department at your relevant university.
Right, and OPT is like optional practical training, correct?
Yes. So
right. Where to do an internship or to work temporarily in a U.S. company, right?
Right, correct. So the OPT is when you finish your degree, and the CPT is when you're doing it during the course of your studies.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I also wanted to highlight, Jamila and Dwayne, you both referenced the importance of learning foreign languages, and I just want to support that 100%. In our career, we have to learn languages. So I'm fluent in Spanish, I'm fluent in Mandarin, Chinese as well, and I think it's been super helpful for my career advancement to have those two languages. So anybody out there, if you're trying to learn Spanish, French, German, anything, it would be a huge help in your career.
Absolutely. To piggyback on Leland, for my current job, I had to be able to speak French because we have employees in Germany. I had to be able to speak French in order to be successful for this position. And that's something that I didn't know until my second interview. And
I think as the world is becoming even more globalized, right, you're going to need to learn at least another language in order to really function and be competitive.
Absolutely.
Job market. All right, another question from Shanae Springer. Is there a different approach for persons without a lot of work experience? For example, students who recently graduated from UE.
Oh, wow. Could we pull back up the question a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. So for people that don't have a lot of work experience because you're at school, what we're looking for is, one, your education and your skills and accomplishments. There are a lot of dynamic, amazing young people that are working on some awesome projects through the Rotary Club, through Kiwanis, through JCI, that we are amazed by. These projects not only have impact at the university or college level, but nationally and regionally. So it's not just formal work experience that we're looking for. We're looking for the skills that you've garnered in school, whether it be leadership skills, project management skills. So my advice to Shanae and the other people that are now leaving school that may think that they don't have work experience, so they're kind of at disadvantage, would be to focus on your project-based skills, your voluntary experience. Those are things that are transferable skills that we can use in the workplace. So if you have a wealth of volunteer experience or project management experience, like being on the guild of students, or having a leadership position in school, those are things that are transferable into the workplace.
Right, and then as far as for the formatting for this section of your resume goes, it is best to think of that experience as a professional work experience. So the name of the club or the project that you were worked on should be used as the header for that experience, and with the explanatory bullet points underneath it. So you could feel free to include things like your date, if the project was done under time constraint, because let's say you're in your club and organization, you had 3 weeks to come up with to create a robot, right? Let's say you had 3 weeks to come up with a robot, and you achieve this under the 3 weeks. It shows that number one, you are excellent at time management, and number two, you're excellent at you can handle the project management cycle excellently. So even though you don't have work experience, these professional experience from that you gathered through clubs and organizations, they can be used. But again, it's all about tailoring and formatting.
Very interesting. I guess the next question is from our colleague, Chad Monerville, who is the CARICOM Youth Ambassador for Barbados. And he just wanted to ask Dwayne, could you advise on a website in order to generate a QR code for a resume?
I know for sure. The only one that I can think of right now, I think LinkedIn, they have a feature that can not generate your LinkedIn is like your professional resume. That resume is like your online resume. I think LinkedIn can generate that link for you in a QR code format. But to say if I had any public domains, that I don't have one off of the top of my head, but I can also reach out to Chad and send him one as well, so he can advise any other person that may have the same question.
Great. No, it's good that you mentioned LinkedIn, because actually one of my questions was about LinkedIn. I've heard that LinkedIn is one of the social media platforms that's the fastest growing right now. And it's only going to become more important as more and more people use it. And I wanted to ask both of you, should our LinkedIn profile be word for word what we have on our resume, or should we be highlighting different things on LinkedIn as opposed to on our resume?
Okay. Not necessarily word for word, but basically adding, because for this purpose, we're trying to create a one-page resume. But then your LinkedIn, you can go a step further by detailing, using statistics. You can also include the professional summary that Jamelia also alluded to in the description of you, and it allows you to insert your bio as well. So yes, it's like your word for word. I call it the public domain for your resume. That's what I consider it as. And it also allows you to automatically put you in different industries. So for example, I am in the finance industry, so LinkedIn automatically tailors and suggests things that would be of interest to me, like Forbes magazine, the Financial Times, et cetera, et cetera.
Hi, Leland. I'm actually glad that you brought up that question, because LinkedIn is perfect, because you can add, if you're making a reference on your LinkedIn to a specific project, LinkedIn actually allows you to add the project. You can add the magazine, you can add your thesis statement. So it actually gives you actual examples of your work. If you're a graphic designer, LinkedIn allows you to add your portfolio to your page. So it's the recruiter's best friend, because we don't have to ask you to bring copies of your work to the interview, or that may assist us in shortlisting you, because we can actually see copies of your work before you even get to the interview stage.
That's so interesting. And I also love the feature that you can have your recommendations, right? People write your recommendations right there, right? That's great. We have another question from Tandy Holder Frank. What is the standard number of references or referees required? And is it necessary that you always use your last or current employment, manager, or supervisor as your reference?
Okay, so as far as I'm aware, there's no standard. Normally, people use 2 to 3 references, but that varies based on territory. There are some people that put on their resume references available upon request. And that's sometimes because there are some employers that require professional references. So they may specify who can give references. It might have to be a direct manager or HR manager on your behalf. There are some companies that may allow references for as far back as 15 years, while others may require references in the last 5-year period. Because 15 years is a long time. A lot could have changed in terms of your work ethic and style in 15 years. So as far as I'm aware, right now, what we do with the companies that I work for, we do last 5 years, the references in last 5-year period of your career. So the professional reference could be a direct manager, a supervisor, or anybody that you would have worked on a project with could give a reference for you.
And best practice is that you try to avoid using family members.
Correct.
Yes.
Family members and close friends. So you want to keep it as professional as possible. So that is why normally they will tell you your last employer provide that reference for you.
Very interesting. Next question is from Shashatha Jeffrey, who is another CARICOM youth ambassador for Barbados. And she asked, Jamila, as a recruiter, what are some common errors you see on resumes or CVs that people should be aware of and avoid?
Number one, too much content. So it's one page and people try to stuff or pack as much information on the page, which makes it overcrowded, hard to read, and quite frankly, overwhelming. So that's why Dwayne would have went through today the key sections or categories that you need to focus on and how to make your information succinct, that it fits into 4 or less bullet points. So the biggest error or common problem that I've found is it's overwhelming. One page with just a lot of words, it could be overwhelming for a recruiter.
Doing anything to add? Oh, no. The question was specifically to Jamila, but that is something when I used to edit resumes, that's also, they want to flush their resume with content. It goes back to what we said. Tailor it using current stuff, using those that would show that you can manage your time, you're good at this, you're good at ownership, you're a communicator, you know how to generate stuff, and you're results oriented persons. Because one of the mistake that a lot of persons make when they're entering the job market is that their resumes show that they are proactive. They're reactive, instead of being proactive. So you that you are a proactive individual.
Very.
Absolutely. So another common problem, Leland, that we find in terms of packing it out with content, like accomplishments. I'm sure in the last 5 years you would have had recent accomplishments, but people tend to put people that are in their 30s. We find putting they already had girl in primary school, which is a big accomplishment, but it's not as recent as we would like. We would like a more recent professional accomplishment. So look at your top accomplishments and put on your website. That's just an example of overpacking with content.
Very interesting. Next question is from Danielle Brown. She says, I have recently graduated from UE and I'm currently living in the US. What advice would you give to someone when applying for a job in the US when most of your accomplishments are Caribbean based?
This is for Dwayne.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Sure. It says, this is from Danielle Brown. She says she recently graduated from UE, but she's living in the US. And so what advice would you give to her who is applying for a job in the US, but most of her accomplishments are in the Caribbean?
That is something that I also went through as well. It's accepted. It's accepted because it goes back to how you format and what power verbs or action words you use. So, for example, most of my accomplishment before going off to school, I worked for an electricity company here in Nevis. And then also, I had a professional volunteer experience before leaving as well. But what I had to do, I had to demonstrate that these experiences that I have coming from the Caribbean, how can they set me apart from another person's and another U.S. resident? And that is something that, you can show through your resume, and then again through when you're talking and being interviewed by the recruiter as well. So don't look at it as a challenge, because I find that that's a turn off for a lot of Caribbean students.
Mm-hmm.
That when you're in the United States, you think that, okay, because I'm not a national, I won't get selected first, or that company don't want to invest in me. You want to show them that you are adaptable. You're coming from a small island, and people usually say that we have a small island mind. However, you can turn that around and use that as an advantage. You can say, while we might be from a small Caribbean island, it teaches me to be a good team player, and it teaches you how to take ownership and leadership on that. So it's all about how you sell yourself as the candidate. So don't look at being from the Caribbean as a drawback for you in terms of seeking employment, but showing that you're an ideal candidate is all it takes, because then that recruiter can even go as further as filing for your work permit. So there's no end to it. So it's all about how you sell yourself, and then the recruiter, if they see that, wow, this Caribbean person is making an excellent candidate and they're standing out, well, I'm going to speak to the U.S. Embassy and file for their work permit. That's all it takes. It's just for you to sell yourself and making yourself the ideal candidate.
Right. And then the company could apply on your behalf for H-1B, right? Specialized knowledge visa, or the L-1, the transfer from one sort of company office to another. That's really interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, I had a question. So as we know, COVID-19 maybe has affected people's employment. Maybe they are temporarily unemployed. And so what would your advice be for somebody who may have employment gaps? Should they try to explain that in their resume? How should they handle that?
Normally when we see gaps in employment on a resume, that normally is followed up by what we call a telephone interview, where we try to find out why do gaps exist. Now, I think every resume going forward past 2020, we'll know why there was a gap in 2020, because I foresee many resumes will have a large employment gap 2020 and 2021, because they don't see us recovering anytime soon, right? I think employers just want to know, what were you doing? Some people take a year off, a gap year, to travel or to go back to school, to probably start a family. So employers don't look negatively on gap like breaks in your career. We just need to know, what were you doing in the year? How were you developing yourself mentally and physically, personally and professionally?
Next question is from Sajan Patel. How do you identify keywords from a job posting and incorporate that into your own resume?
That's a fantastic question. So there are many recruiters worldwide who actually use software to screen resumes. And when they run the resumes through the software, they actually look for keywords. The keywords they look for are the core competencies that they're recruiting for. So for example, if they posted a job ad and the core competencies must be able to efficiently operate Microsoft Office, must be able to operate SAP, which is a professional program, they are going to put those keywords in, and they're going to see if your resume has any of those highlights. So what my recommendation for you would be to do is what I said earlier: align your resume with the specific job. So if they have keywords in a job advertisement, make sure those keywords are listed in your resume. So that means your resume cannot be a static document. It has to be different for every single ad. I've realized that even more so in the Eastern Caribbean, there are some international banks who are actually requiring you to apply through their software. So you're not uploading your resume, they're actually having you fill out like an online form, and that generates a resume for you and pulls keywords. So even if you are submitting a resume or completing an online application, make sure that you include some of those keywords. Dwayne, you want to add something?
Yes. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that's the exact reason why it is important that you you tailor your resume. Some resumes, they run through a system. Nowadays, everything is virtual now. COVID has made everything more or less virtual. So having that one resume, you're applying for this job, that job, that job, that job, and all of them have received the same resume, how can you be screened with a good fair chance? So using those keywords, mechanical, you have a degree in engineering, then the system automatically pulls that out and places you in a different category for advanced consideration.
Very interesting. And we're just putting on our banners right below. If you want to get more information from Jamila, you can visit the hrboss.com. Or if you want to get in touch with Dwayne, you can definitely contact the St. Kitts and Nevis Department for Youth Empowerment on that Facebook link. All right. We have a question from Carol Pemberton Benjamin. So do you recommend that we leave off our experience, any experience that is not related to the job you are applying for?
If you don't have at least 3, then you may want to include it. Again, this is where you'd use this opportunity through the interview now to, show that non-related work experience. But if you have a plethora of work experience, you may want to leave out those that are not relevant to that particular job.
Okay. A couple more things I wanted to highlight. One, if people don't know what UE means, UE is the University of the West Indies. And of course, there's the Cave Hill camp. There's a Mona campus in Jamaica, Cave Hill campus in Barbados. And then also for the questions about people who are still in university who maybe want access to academic resources, I definitely want to highlight the fact that we have Education USA, which hosts webinars on such topics. So please, again, follow the U.S. Embassy on Facebook or visit the Education USA global YouTube channel. And there's a whole bunch of resources for students specifically if you want to study in the U.S. and things like that. We've got just 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try to go with some more questions. There is one question I saw from another one from Chad Monerville. Where can persons get professional assistance in drafting resumes or CVs, both in Barbados, St. Kitts, or anywhere else in the Eastern Caribbean?
We service the entire Caribbean. This is the HR boss. So we service as far south as Bahamas and as far east as far north as Bahamas and as far south as Trinidad. So it just depends on what you're looking for and style. So you can contact me and I will be able to assist you with that. There are 8 of us at the HR boss. So we'll be happy to help you.
And then in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have Talent Plus. That's a HR management company and training company here in St. Kitts. And there are other freelance persons who actually do professional HR management services. So if anybody in Kitts and Nevis, I would recommend using Talent Plus. So
they're really good. Yeah.
Their website is talentplushr.com. You could also find them on Instagram with the handle Talent Plus. You can find them on Facebook, Talent Plus HR, and same thing as LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, we've got just 1 more minute, so I think it's time for us to wrap up. And I know, unfortunately, we do have some more questions, but I think it's time for us to wrap up. And so do either of you have any more things to say to leave to the audience?
No, Leland. I just want to encourage people to update their resume regularly and to make sure they put their best foot forward given the current environment.
Yes, and as I will tell other people, use this opportunity to your advantage. Of course, because of how COVID affected all of us, you just want to use this opportunity to work on your professional development. Start looking at, the way how you brand yourself, how you carry yourself in the different social media platforms. What are things I need to clean up on my resume? How can I update it? Use this time as best as you can to update yourself professionally. So when you're ready to launch yourself, you're rebranded in terms of a more and better improved professional version of your current self.
Fantastic, and a great way to end. I want to thank both of you so much, Jamila, Dwayne. I want to thank you guys for offering a wealth of information. It has been super enlightening, and I want to thank you guys so much. And to everyone out there, this is just part one of our three-part series this week. And so our next one is Wednesday, September 16th, same time at noon, right here on Facebook Live. It will be specifically on prep and practice, tips for the interview. And we'll be joined with our very own Chad Monterville, who is the CARICOM Youth Ambassador for Barbados, and Tiffany Jones, who is founder of The Job Connect. So don't miss that either. And thank you guys so much for attending, and have a great day.